Hey friends, welcome to the Canyon Pathways podcast, where we invite you to live like a son and lead like a father. Canyon Pathways is a global community of men on the journey from the striving of servanthood to the freedom of sonship as we traverse the canyon that is midlife leadership. My name is Noel Bouché, and I'm the founder and part of the leadership team for this venture, and I'll be your guide throughout this podcast as we explore and discover what it means to live like a son so we can lead like a compassionate father. Great to be with you for this episode of the CP Pod. Glad to be a member and participant with you of the Canyon Pathways community, a global community of men learning to live like sons so we can lead like fathers. If it's your first time to the podcast, welcome. We're excited to be with you at the table of sonship. We've got two types of episodes that we drop here at the Canyon Pathways podcast. The first one is, such as this episode, what we call a field note episode, where we're looking at one of our field notes, which here at Canyon Pathways are short essays exploring a word that embodies a concept that we believe is central to this movement from servanthood to sonship, to the freedom of living like a son of God. We got a second one that is, we call our conversation episode. So on the heels of a field note episode, we'll follow up with a conversation with a brother in the Canyon Pathways community somewhere around the world, where we'll sit with this concept a little bit more and hear more personal stories and just tap into the collective wisdom and experience that exists in this community. So come back for the next episode. We're going to have a great conversation on this field note that we're going to look at in a second with Sherman Bradley and Robert Bowens. But first, our field note here. And this field note in this episode is on control. You know, control is, central theme in life. Who's in control? Who's out of control? Am I out of control? How do I gain control? We bump into this continually, especially in midlife leadership. We just have this innate desire for control, to grasp control. Sometimes we view that as one of the metrics of success. Have I gained control over the circumstances, the situations, the people, the relationships around me? Indeed, to be out of control, to be seen as out of control, to feel out of control is a terrifying thought for many of us, a sign of either incompetence or defeat. And yet, we find that there's an interesting correlation between the desire for control in our hearts and minds and the level of uncertainty around us. In fact, if you just kind of dip into the research, you'll see that the desire for control is often rooted in and identified as springing out of the anxiety that uncertainty creates in our lives. And we live in an uncertain world. We live in a VUCA environment. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous, and we try to deal with that. We try to protect ourselves and overcome by seizing control. The problem is, we try to make control the end goal. Do we fall into being a controlling person? That's the inquiry. Can I be in control of things around me and not be controlling? That's a dilemma that many of us bump into, especially in midlife leadership, in our families, as a parent, perhaps, as a spouse, as a leader of others who has responsibility for others, for team members, for colleagues, for clients, customers, congregants. We have responsibilities. We want control to meet those responsibilities. We don't want to be out of control. We want to be able to show competence, if for no other reason than to help. And many of us bump into that. We're in a relationship where we're just trying to help. And here I am being accused of being controlling and inflexible and domineering. What's that about? I'm just trying to help. I'm just trying to be helpful. I'm trying to make sure nothing slips through the cracks. I'm trying to make sure no harm comes into our relationship, our family, our household, our company, our team. I'm just trying to protect. I'm just trying to mitigate risk. I'm just trying to create certainty. I'm just trying to stay in control. And yet, in that quest, I find myself exhausted, drained, weary, and angry. What to do? Well, first thing is pause, reflect, let's explore. What is this thing called control that we are trying so desperately to secure in our lives? Let's dive in. This is our field note on control. We're going to look at what it is, what it means, and how we address it and respond to it as a son. Control. Life is to be lived, not controlled. Ralph Ellison. We want to be in control. We just do. Why? Because control is power over the things and people around us. And power, we think, will fill the void in our hearts. It will, we hope, medicate the fear, the uncertainty, the anxiety that mortality has programmed into this age of the human experience, that our traumas have etched into our being. To not have control is a more terrifying prospect for many of us than dying itself. To not have control worries our wounded hearts because, fundamentally, we view the things and people around us as threats that, if left uncontrolled, will hurt us even more. The desire to control, we come to realize, is rooted in our fear, and fear is exhausting. The exhaustion develops slowly over time. We don't feel it at the outset. In fact, often we experience exhilaration when we get our first taste of exerting control over people and places. It seems to us that we've arrived. We've conquered the threats and overcome the primal angst. But eventually we wear down and have to strive even harder to maintain that control. And so a cycle of diminishing exhilaration and deepening exhaustion develops. Why? Because being in control, put another way, being a controlling person, is wearisome work. The word itself comes from the Latin contra rotulus, meaning to roll against. When we control people or things, what we are quite literally doing is rolling against them. We are contra them, against them. And when our goal is to control, to be against everyone and everything around us, things get lonely and tiring real quick. Rolling against everything all the time is a strenuous endeavor. On top of that, it produces an ever-increasing resistance. To be controlled, to have someone contra you, against you, is not a pleasant experience. Anyone who has had a controlling parent, a controlling boss, a controlling spouse, even a controlling friend knows how this feels. Because no matter how much a controlling person truly believes they are helping us, what we experience is them rolling against us, being contra us. And as we react to that, they have to roll against us even harder. So how do we escape this exhausting cycle? Release control. In small ways at first, begin releasing the perceived need to control, the need to roll against everything around us. Then, actually stop rolling against people and circumstances. Just be. And maybe for the first time, we can begin rolling not outwardly, but inwardly toward our own impulses, toward our inner defaults of aggression, avoidance, indulgence, self-control, an actual fruit of the Spirit within us, rather than a fear-induced reaction to the world around us. It's in this new posture that we can begin to experience a restfulness that has been eluding our hearts. Instead of believing we have to be the rigid, immovable rock pushing back against the elements around us, we can be the water. We can begin to flow, to experience the tranquil, flexible freedom of just being in the Creator's current. Be water, as Bruce Lee put it. Better yet, be living water. Many parched souls are waiting. For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. 2 Timothy 1:7. There's our field note on control, and I hope you took away a few things immediately upon listening to that. I did, and I'm going to come back to this, but this concept has literally transformed my life. It has been to a degree that I have a hard time articulating impactful and transformative in virtually every area of my life. My faith, my manner of thinking, my communication, my relationships, the way I approach my relationships. It has, I want to say it's turned things on its head, on their head, but it has brought me to a new level of frankly understanding what the call is and the invitation is from the Father to us as sons, and hence what it means to live like a son of God. So, three things that I want to highlight that really were important for me. First one is this, that control, the desire to control, is always rooted in fear. It is the source of our impulse to control, to be controlling. It's fear. It's fear of uncertainty. It's the anxiety that we experience as mortal human beings. And it is the natural state of a mortal being in this mortal age to be fearful. We like to say, have no fear. We like to believe we can be courageous on our own power, but it is the normal state. It's the baseline for a mortal, in this case, as men, male human being, to operate out of fear because we're mortal. Because death, mortal from the Latin muerte, death, is what we are defined by. We die. And not only do we die, we are dying. And we live in a world that is dying. Hence, we live in a world of scarcity. That's the natural state. Resources are scarce. Honor, esteem, affection are scarce. Time, more than anything, is scarce because it will end, we will die. We are dying beings until we turn to the one who gives life. And that is the great offer of God to us, that he is the one who has overcome death, in which new state, the state of being adopted as sons, filled with the Spirit of God, who is immortal, not mortal, but immortal, that we now can experience the opposite of scarcity. We can experience abundance. We can experience the safety of abundance, of the promise of resurrected life. We no longer have to live in fear. But that's the supernatural reality. And until we step into living like supernatural sons of God, ones who have been given a seal of the Spirit, and one day will be resurrected, raised from the dead into the state we were created to be in, which is immortal, spiritual beings. When that last enemy, as 1 Corinthians 15 says, that last enemy, death, is done away with forever, then we will experience it. Right now we have a seal. And that can be a barometer for us, recognizing when am I operating in fear and when am I operating in the opposite of it, which is what? Not courage, not bravery, love. 1 John, perfect love drives out fear. When I'm operating in love, I will give, I will pour out, I will be present, I will respond with faith, hope, love to whatever circumstances come my way, whatever situation I'm put into. But when I'm operating out of fear, I will seek to control. It's what we do. Every form of control is rooted in fear. And, that's kind of jarring at first. It's like, that can't be true. I mean, controls are good. We have controls. We need controls. Controls are part of our daily lives. Laws, ordinances, regulations, they're part of controls. We have quality controls. And indeed, we do. Why do we have them? Because we live in a mortal age where there is death, there is harm, there is the fruits of death, which is greed, lust, taking, hatred, anger, envy. So we have controls. Just like in a manufacturing facility, we have quality controls. But why do we have quality controls? Because we're afraid of the harms and the liabilities that can flow if we don't have the controls. That's what controls are always rooted in. The fear, it's mitigating risk. And in our day-to-day lives, like we said, some controls we need. The question is, will I control? Will I be the one who is controlling? Here's perhaps a more profound question. Do I need to be the one in control? Do I, in the fiber of my being, in the deepest recesses of my heart and mind, need to be the one who is control? Well, that's that's a question we have to sit with and ask ourselves. And of course, the next question would be why? Perhaps it's because we have been controlled. Perhaps it's because we have experienced a controlling parent, a controlling sibling, a controlling spouse, a controlling friend, a controlling boss. And we have said, no mas, I will forever now be the one in control. Perhaps I've been wounded, I've been harmed, I've been abused, I've been betrayed, I've been forsaken, abandoned, and I will now no longer allow that to be so. I will control. But when we desire that control, we become controlling. And if we've been controlled, then we know well what it's like to feel under someone else's control, no matter how much. This is the thing that we wrestle with as men, perhaps as a father, perhaps as a spouse, as a husband, um, certainly one who has influence in midlife leadership, who has responsibilities, who has uh, responsibilities that affect other people. We want to control sometimes just because we think or convince ourselves we want to help. I know what can happen. I'm helping you. Yes, I'm going to control this. Yes, I'm going to dictate every detail. Yes, I'm going to be upset if it's not done this way, the way I want it, or the way that I said it should be done. Because I'm trying to help, trying to keep things on the rails. And that's understandable. It's not what we're called to. We're called to let go of that need to control, the need to roll against, to be contra against everything in our environment, everything that may hurt us, that may disrespect us, that may take away something we have, that may require more resources, more of my time and energy. We're invited to not be against everything in our environment, but to rest out as a son. But that's the second takeaway is this discovery that control, rooted in this Latin etymology, literally meaning from contra rotulus, to roll against. It's why we have been hurt in the past by someone who's controlled us. Because even if they were trying to help, even if they did have a desire to prevent harm, to help us in some way, if they were controlling us, what we experienced is them being against us. You just you just do. That's just the dynamic. I'm trying to help. I really am. I just want to help you. Just do what I say. And I've done that hundreds of times. I mean, and most of it has been probably in relation or to or in the context of or with respect to my family, in my marriage or in my parenting. Just do what I say. Why? Because I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to limit risk, minimize the harm that we're going to suffer and all the pain that will come from it. I'm trying to just stop this terrible thing from happening at worst, and at best I'm trying to avoid a slight annoyance. But I'm controlling, and I have to not. Why? Because I'm called to be for, not against those that I love. I'm called to serve them and be present. I'm, yes, going to share wisdom, but there's a difference between sharing counsel and wisdom and controlling people and environments around me. And the temptation is to fall into that every single day, which is why we need to give this every single day. We need to die to self, give it up to the Father who loves us and who, by the way, does not control us. There's, we like to say God's in control. And in the way we are referring to that, it's not wrong necessarily, but I've discovered it doesn't say that anywhere in Scripture. It does not say that God is in control. It does say that God is in command. And command and control, it turns out, are two separate things. So somewhat of a non sequitur to us. It might be a bit discombobulating. I come back to this in a future field note on the word command. But I learned a number of years ago that command and control is not one thing. It is a relationship between two different concepts and modes of operating, command being the one, control being the other. And as I learned in a copy of the Army Ranger Handbook that I stumbled upon, you want a high command, low control environment as a leader. Interesting. High command, low control. I'll put the field note on command in the show notes if you want to read ahead in the syllabus, as it were. But command is not control. God is in command. God does not control us. An amazing thing. God could control us easily if he wanted to, but it's not in his nature. If it was in his nature, he wouldn't have put a tree of knowledge of good and evil in the garden. He gives us agency. He gives us choice. He invites us into relationship. He invites us to live as sons. He opens the door and even gives us half of our inheritance if we say that we want to peace out and head to a far country. He does not control. And that is, I guess, the third takeaway for me from this field note, that when I am living as a son of God, I will not control, because it will not be the essence of my nature flowing out. I will not seek control because I won't desire control, because the posture of my heart and mind will not be contra and controlling of the people and the places and the circumstances around me. Indeed, when I am living in that manner as a son filled with the Spirit, the fruits of that Spirit will be working in me, flowing out of me, one of which is self-control. The only place in Scripture that we see us being invited into any type of control in English translations. Self-control. Doing what? Rolling against the impulses of that aspect of me that is still mortal, that is still subject to sin and death. Rolling against that inwardly, so that outwardly the fruits of the Spirit may be flowing out to everyone around me, empowering them, protecting them, covering them, inviting them into relationship, casting vision, sharing wisdom, counsel, and experience. That's the life of a son. Why? Because we saw that in the life of the son, who could have snapped his fingers, who had every right and ability to control everyone and everything around him. And yet he came down, not because he desired control, to protect himself, to protect his reputation, but because God so loved the world that he gave. And that's what we will see in our lives. Slowly, moment by moment, we'll begin to see ourselves able to let go of control, to see in our heart the desire for control waning. And we'll begin to see the fruits of this Spirit of this Father manifesting in our life. We'll begin to see a presence and a responsiveness to the things around us with a full heart, from which we get the word courage, the heart that is full, the courageousness to whatever we're faced with. Know that God is for us. He's covering us. He is a good father to us as a beloved son. We no longer have to strive, grasp, white knuckle it for control over all these things around us. Simply roll against our own desires, our own impulse to do that. And we will see things lighten immediately in our lives. Not just the load we bear, but the countenances of the people around us. It's a beautiful image, summed up nicely in the final paragraph of the field note, which says we no longer have to just exhaustively be that hard rock rolling against everything around us, and instead flow like water, indeed like the living water that we are promised will flow out of the heart of a son of God. It's a beautiful invitation, and I'll leave you with two reflection questions as we come to the end of this episode. How often do you seek to control the people and events around you? What drives that impulse to roll against things in your environment? Friends, hope you enjoyed this field note episode on control and are taking away a few things that you can apply right away in your own life. Come back again, subscribe so you get this when it drops. But our next episode is going to be a conversation with Canyon brothers Sherman Bradley and Robert Bowens on this topic of control, and how when we begin to live like a son, make the move from servanthood to sonship, we'll be able to live in the freedom that sonship brings and lead like a compassionate not controlling father. So eager for that conversation. Make sure you catch that in our next episode. Check out the show notes here for links, as well as a PDF with reflection questions if you'd like to use this episode for personal reflection or in small group meetings. Subscribe so you catch all the upcoming episodes as we develop a language of sonship through this podcast. Thanks to the team at Maroon Harpoon for producing this episode and all of our episodes, and to our donors who make this venture possible. And as always, thank you for being a part of this Canyon Pathways community as we together live like sons and lead like fathers.